It's Fishmas season. What are you doing to celebrate? Let's, It's Fishmas season. What are you doing to celebrate? What other fish are celebrating that special holiday feeling? And what is the exchange rate between Money Max and Food Max again? To find out, let's ask Dr. Fish. That's right, it is Ask Dr. Fish, our every other month live stream where we ask our doctors fish questions, science questions, and life questions. If you're watching us live, I'm going to figure out how to fade this audio. If you're watching us live, feel free to paste a question into the chat on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you happen to be seeing this live. We're joined today. We are lucky to be joined today by at least one and maybe two Ask Dr. Fish, depending on technical difficulties. First one is Katie, the originator of 25 Days of Fish, Miss O'Reilly. Katie is, of course, a Dr. Fish. She's the aquatic invasive species specialist at Illinois Indiana Sea Grant. And you can follow her on Twitter or X at Dr. Catfish, catfish with a K. Katie, happy Fishmas. Merry Fishmas to you.
Merry Fishmas to you. You know, God bless us, everyone.
I am very blessed by multiple cod, and I have no idea if our other Dr. Fish is here or not. We're having some back-end problems. Do we have another Dr. Fish right now? If not, Katie, you're going to have to do double duty, but the thing is, you can do it.
I was going to say, I mean, it might, our other Dr. Fish might be making a Fishmas surprise later in the show. If he
you know, there's always room for a Fishmas surprise.
Always room.
And we're also joined today by Carolyn Shines Like Fairy Lights Foley. Fairy Lights Foley is what they used to call her, in fact. Not a Dr. Fish, but she's a research coordinator with Illinois Indiana Sea Grant. Hello, Carolyn. Merry Fishmas to you, too.
And Merry Fishmas to you as well, Dr. Carlton.
Thank you. And my name is Stuart. Carolyn wrote these. My name is Stuart. Evil Holiday Podcast Mastermind Carlton, and not a Dr. Fish. I'm Assistant Director with Illinois Indiana Sea Grant. We got a big show today. I'm going to give you a little tease for what to stick around for. We got our usual top 3 stories, and then we're going to celebrate Fishmas with the Ask Dr. Fish Challenge. And so stick around for that. But first, topic number 1, and it's the topic at hand. 'Tis the season, Fishmas. All right, so Katie O'Reilly, the best thing you've ever done is Fishmas. Maybe. I don't know. A top
No, it is.
5? Top 8 thing you've done is Fishmas. How did Fishmas get going? Tell us about Fishmas. What is it? How did it go going?
Yeah, so what the heck is 25 Days of Fishmas? 25 Days of Fishmas was a silly idea I created back in 2016 when I was a grad student. And, you know, typical grad student fashion, it's getting to be the end of the semester. I'd been doing a lot of research, which was mostly focused on Great Lakes and the fish communities that live in them. And I happened to stumble across a poster that Wisconsin Sea Grant made that was basically showcasing a lot of different fish species that live in the Great Lakes. And this poster essentially, like, you know, is vertical. It has a bunch of little icons of fish. And, you know, something in my brain, you know, kind of clicked and said, you know, this reminds me a lot of an Advent calendar. For those who aren't familiar, sort of the Advent calendars are these little calendars, that where you open a little door each day in December and get a treat.
Normally it's like candy, right?
Exactly. Normally it's like chocolates, you know, whatever. But in this case, you would get facts about fish. And so
candy for your brain.
Exactly. Well, it's grad student brain. And so I decided, you know, why don't I just feature a different Great Lakes fish species each day in December? And 7 years later, I am still featuring a different Great Lakes fish species each day in December. So it's been a wild ride. And I think, you know, what's cool about it from my perspective is just seeing people get really engaged and interested in fish that they might not always or may never have heard of before.
Yeah, sure. But I think, and for those watching live or listening down the line, one thing I'll say that Katie's really good at is taking these fun things and making them genuinely educational, right? And so that's one thing that's cool about Fishmas. I mean, you come for the fish puns. No, you leave because of the fish puns, I think. But there's also, before you leave, though, you're going to learn a lot while doing it. So how many different, do you know, have you done a census on how many different fishies you featured?
That is a really good question because, you would think it would just be 25 times 7 or, for the 7 years I've done it.
Right.
But
7 years.
7 years, yeah. But I've done a couple of repeats, because not everybody who was following me, was following me right at the beginning. So I've done some species, and it's also been, sometimes we know more, like more research has come out since I last featured a species. And then 2020, which was obviously a weird year, I did it was a road trip around America to feature different fish species outside of the Great Lakes, kind of because nobody could travel that year. It was a travel extravaganza.
Yeah, sure. Travel extravaganza, that makes sense. And so this year 7, that's 140, almost 30, 175 days of Fishmas by the end of this year. How's it going this year? Well, first of all, I mean, so you do it primarily on Twitter or X or whatever, right? And so you're finding engagement, or is it harder because of all the interesting things going on over there?
It's definitely different engagement. It's lower than it has been in past years because, there's this whole fragmenting social media landscape.
Such a nice way to put it.
But I still think, for my purposes, it's the best platform because I like to do kind of threaded tweets so you can sort of follow along a storyline about a single fish. And I haven't found that as much on other social media platforms. So we'll see. Maybe next year will be the year I finally switch platforms, depending on the future of
who knows?
The platform.
A lot can change in a year. Yeah.
A lot can change in a year.
And Katie, can you talk a little bit about how other people have taken this and made it their own? Because you started it, but I'm trying to show a couple of the latest tweets, and I'm just going to scroll through some of them here. But can you talk a little bit about how it's taken on a life of its own to some degree?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the ways that Fishmas has impacted me the most is seeing other people take this concept and make it their own. And so in past years, there's been a lot more 25 days of Fishmas where basically different people take, a study system they're familiar with or a place they live in and feature fish, in a similar style, like the model of one fish a day. I'm thinking past years, there was one that was like fishes of Utah. There was coral reef fishes. And even beyond that, there's been things that have spun off of it, such as crustmas for crustaceans. There was a squidmas one year.
Squidmas?
Squidmas was great. But beyond just kind of, taking the 25 days of fish model, there's also been, I've partnered with Sunday Fish Sketch, which is this kind of established challenge on Twitter where each week people sketch pictures of fish, hence the name. And what we've done there is actually do mystery clues. So people have to guess the 25 days of Fishmas beforehand, given some clues that I provide. And that's been a really cool way to tie art into this whole science endeavor.
Excellent. And we have a question here actually from an audience member, which you can type into the chat button if you want, or in the little chat box, type in your questions. Has there been a favorite fish that you featured on Fishmas? Or is there one that you keep coming back to?
Oh, I have to say probably one of my favorites is the American eel. And that's mostly because of all the puns you can do with Noel/no eel. Which is really terrible, honestly. But I think beyond the
Eely terrible.
It's eely terrible, exactly. I feel eel. Beyond just the I know. Beyond just the ability to do terrible puns with it, the American eel is just such a strange fish that most people in the Great Lakes have never encountered, mostly because it's relatively restricted to like Lake Ontario, the St. Lawrence River. But it's just really cool to talk about because of their strange life history.
Is that the one? So one of my origin stories
Yeah.
is for like why I got interested in stuff was I had some book of like mysteries and cool fish or ocean things or whatever. And I seem to remember with the eel, they didn't know way back in the 80s where it spawned, like where its breeding grounds were. Is that still a mystery? Do you know?
So we have a better sense, but you're totally correct. So for a long time, scientists did not know where eels reproduce. There's even a famous anecdote about the ancient Greeks thought that eels just sort of came out of the ground, like out of mud, because they didn't know where they were reproducing. But in recent years, due to advances in like tracking and tagging, we do know that the eels all spawn in the Sargasso Sea, which is in the Atlantic Ocean. Okay. So they spawn in the ocean, but then they return to freshwater to live their adult lives. They're basically reverse salmon.
Reverse salmon. There we go. Excellent. I'm going to pause here because I think we have a Fishmas miracle.
It's a Fishmas miracle.
It is.
Good morning. Hey, everybody.
Hello, Titus. No, Titus, you just got it. Carolyn gave us all titles in our little documents. I have to give you yours. It's Titus played Santa on a fishing boat once. Seiheimer, a Dr. Fish, fishery specialist, Wisconsin Sea Grant. Also on Twitter /X as Dr. Fish SG. Titus, how's it going?
Well, other than our tech issues here, everything's great. And I like to give you guys different shirts. So this time...
Yeah. We can't quite read it, but if you can give it to us, something Wisconsin.
So it says, when you see Wisconsin, you've seen it all. And it is, for you listeners out there, it is a muskellunge with the color pattern of a Holstein cow.
Thank you for that, Titus. That's an excellent.
All it needs is a cheese hat, and it'll be perfect.
And if you look at the date on it, it is 1988.
Ooh, vintage.
Yes, it's that old shirt. My late grandmother's shirt. When we were cleaning her house out, I don't know, 20 some years ago, this was there, and I've had it ever since. So. It is
fantastic.
I think a festive kind of red shirt.
That is a classic shirt. Yeah, and it's a nice for those who are not able to join us live, which you should do on Facebook, YouTube, or I think we might even be streaming on Twitter, but I don't get how that works. It's like this really nice orangey red. It's like a reddish orange. It's very safe to wear, like in the field. People will see you. Unlikely to be mistaken, despite the bovine camouflage. Unlikely to be mistaken for something that people are trying to hunt. Well,
now, Stuart, you were talking origin stories, and I assume you were your origin story was you were bitten by a radioactive eel, and that gives you the superpowers that you now have. Is that true?
Every single superpower I have, I owe to the radioactive eel that bit me. No, it's all good. So Titus, now that you're here, the one thing we love to talk with you about is fish spawning, because we know that's a passion of yours. The origin story of many millions of fish, I suppose. So my understanding is, based on what Carolyn wrote down, that this is cisco spawning season. First of all, what's a cisco again? Because I just think of the food service. And then are they spawning now, and how's it going?
Yeah, cisco. So cisco, it's spelled differently than the food service. CISCO. I think that's right. But yeah, cisco. So in the kind of the world of Great Lakes fish, the cisco is actually a single fish species. You might know it as lake herring, but cisco is kind of technically the scientific name we're using right now, and the common name, accepted common name, and it is in the Coregonus genus. So things like whitefish and bloater chubs. Cisco, they're all kind of cousins to each other. So, and one of the things with a lot of the Coregonids, they like to spawn kind of late fall, early winter. Some of them actually bloater chubs will spawn right in middle of February. So right now is spawning season, and for us in Wisconsin, cisco spawning means up in the Apostle Islands in Lake Superior. we have a lot of our harvest happening for cisco, and that is part of a roe market. So they actually there's this big export market for eggs that go over to Scandinavia. So kind of a neat life history for fish. They're just kind of spawning in the winter.
And so there were a couple of stories about how there were kind of record cisco or lake herring populations happening in Lake Superior. Can you and Katie tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So, so cisco are known to have this kind of episodic success. I mean, that's the thing. Like we've had like years, almost, decades of kind of low recruitment years, but you get one big year. And that's what we've got right now. You get one big, huge year that can then support those the whole fishery for Lake Superior, say, for decades, because they're also pretty long-lived fish. So, it's a pretty neat. And we've got right now just tons of these little kind of 1 to 2 year old cisco swimming around out in Lake Michigan or Lake Superior right now. So pretty exciting.
Yeah, and just to build off what Titus is saying, sometimes we don't always know like what leads to booms and busts in fish populations, but in some cases it's due to like, climate conditions, was it a particularly wet, dry year, warm year, cold year? So that's one of the things as scientists we're always trying to tease apart to try and help us understand, why are some years better than others?
But that's something that's always naturally happened, or do we think there's anthropogenic cause, right? Is it something we're doing that's making it boom and bust, or is it just that's how it's been?
I mean, I think it varies depending on the species. Some species just naturally have boom and bust cycles, whereas, some species, the booms and busts might be more extreme now because of, human actions.
Yeah, and one of the things with cisco that we've seen is, it seems like winter is really important to their success, and things like ice cover. So, like you need to have these kind of right conditions happen at the right time for these huge year classes. And yeah, like as Katie said, we're scientists. We like to try to figure out what's causing these things, but you're talking this huge lake with lots of different things happening. So, definitely a concern with things like climate change and, decreasing ice covers is something we're seeing. And, Lake Superior, especially one of the fastest warming large lakes in the world. So that, can also start affecting things like spawning timing. And, if you have kind of changes in the thermal regime, what is that going to mean for these fish too?
Right. Because just, when we talk about the importance of ice cover for these guys, what it really is because they're laying their eggs in the winter, having that ice cover sort of actually helps protect the eggs from getting beat up by winter storms, from all these different variables. Like, Lake Superior in the winter is not a super hospitable place to be. So by having this ice cover, it gives some protection to those developing eggs so that when they hatch, we have our big bustling baby boom of cisco.
Oh, the big bustling baby boom of burbot. That's what we need. You need burbot anyway.
Yeah, and I think, I bet burbot would like to eat these guys. So we have a lot of burbot up in Lake Superior too. So, right now, if you're a lake trout, you got a whole lot of these little cisco that you can eat. And I think that's good news for them and for the burbot too.
I just found out I can accidentally post stuff. I was trying to post stuff in the private chat. We have a private chat, and it turns out I just posted it to the Facebook page. So that's cool. This is why they don't let me have a Facebook account. I was suddenly asking Carolyn if she wanted to transition into the next thing. But I'll go ahead and do
one
it.
thing, actually, not yet, because I would like to ask a little bit. There's a story about Titus mentioned roe, the cisco roe. And so that is like caviar, right? So we're also entering the festive season of like rich party delights and stuff like that. So there's a story about Great Lakes roe and Sweden. Can you tell us about that a bit, please, Titus?
Yeah, so this is actually highlighting my colleague Sharon Moen. She is our food fish outreach coordinator. She works out of our Superior office, and she was contacted because the World Wildlife Federation Europe, or Sweden, were kind of going to list. They were going to red list, so do not, avoid Great Lakes roe. And it was really, because they're over in Europe, they don't really see or hear or know what our how our management works. And because, in the Great Lakes, we've got, multiple states, we've got two countries, we've got, the province of Ontario, we've got lots of tribes as well, First Nation. So, the really, it's not that the management's good. It's, they're using science-based management for Cisco, but from afar, if you're in Sweden, and I guess, doing stuff based on Google searches, it can be hard to kind of tease apart how our management system works. So Sharon was actually contacted by one of our, there's Sharon, if you're watching live, there's a picture of her, and she was contacted by one of our distributors who processes a lot of roe in Wisconsin and then exports it. So, a really big kind of economic piece that connects the Great Lakes fishery to overseas. We talk a lot about are importing a lot of seafood, but this is actually, seafood or a seafood product that we are exporting. So, really a success story. It was, really kind of just telling the story basically of how the Great Lakes fisheries management works to these folks over in Europe, and kind of reassuring them that, we do have sustainable management, it's science-based management. And, I think that, it's just a kind of a great story about what we at Sea Grant do. We, take the science, we translate it to the people who need it, and then they can make good decisions. So I think it's a good story. And yeah, I don't know what parties you're going to. I don't see a lot of caviar at my parties, but I guess that's just, Northeast Wisconsin here. Maybe sturgeon caviar if I knew someone who speared sturgeon, but
no,
I don't
we
have
will
the right
definitely see
friends.
caviar at least one party. Our director has an open house most years. I think they're doing it again this year, and he is from Sweden, actually. And so every time I go to IKEA, he makes me buy him one of those toothpaste tubes filled with caviar, and so you bring it home, and it's just all the food at IKEA is gross. But so I will bring him and several tubes of caviar from IKEA, and he will hopefully break that out at his holiday get together this year. So I will be at a get together with caviar.
Sometimes it can be wishful thinking that life is fancier than it is, or if you want to pretend to be fancy. But I will reset now, Stuart. Okay, so everyone who's listening and watching live, this is Ask Dr. Fish, a show where our two doctors' fishes answer your fish questions, science questions, and life questions. If you have a question for our doctors, put it into the chat right now, and we should be able to see it and share it. Or you can use the Twitter hashtag AskDrFish. You can also email us at askdrfish@gmail.com.
All
and
right.
so I'm going to
up,
let Stuart introduce the next one. Yes.
Why is that? All right, here we go. Next up, we have trading mackerel for a haircut. So Business Insider reporting that former FTX owner, head, chair, whatever the job was, Sam Bankman-Fried, also known as maybe the biggest embezzler, scam artist in the history of the world, has figured out that mackerel is the currency of choice among inmates and is currently used prison mackerel to get a haircut. Titus, how many mackerel would it take, do you think, for you to get a haircut in prison?
I don't, I'm going to say buy the container, like a single container of mackerel. I think that's the haircut. Maybe it's two or three though. I mean, really depends on the quality of the mackerel.
Yeah. I'm not sure how good prison mackerel is. So no more on this story. So yeah, Sam Bankman-Fried is in prison. And so after cigarettes were banned from prisons, I went too deep on this story. After cigarettes were banned in prison a number of years ago, mackerel, or they call them macs in prison. They call them macs. That developed as a currency. And the reason for this is because nobody wants to eat them. And so You have pouches of mackerel, which are available at the commissary, but they're also limited. You can only buy a certain number of them per week, which is why they're, it's kind of like NFTs, right? There's a built-in limited supply. And so people get their max and they're able to trade them as a currency. And as it turns out, Fincoin would be another way to put that, I suppose, from Katie O'Reilly. Thank you for that. It turns out, though, that they are worth more money before they expire. Those are called eating max. And then they're worth less money, but still not nothing after they expire. Then they're called money max. So you got your money max and your eating max. And so that's just a great example of fish as a currency. Katie, do you know about other fish as currency? Is that something you've come across in your studies or maybe not?
Yeah, so actually, I'm going to sound like a broken record because eels were used as currency in medieval England. And actually, there's this really awesome historian on Twitter, Surprised Eel Historian, and he made a map of like how eels were used in medieval Europe. Mostly medieval England, but essentially they were used from people who were renting land from landlords. They would pay their rent in eels. And that just blows my mind because, like, why did we move away from this system? I wish I could just go to my landlord and be like, here are 5 eels. We're good for the month. So, I mean, I don't know what kind of society we live in that doesn't allow eels as currency.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question. It's more tangible than other things. Yeah. Oh, we have a question here. I see this. A question from viewer Peter, related to cisco spawning. Viewer Peter wants to know, for how long do they spawn in the fall, Titus? How long does cisco do their deed? I mean, as a season, not an individual. I'm uninterested in hearing about an individual session.
Oh, actually, Cisco's spawning is, it's fairly general. There's nothing explicit about it. They're just kind of these generalist broadcast spawners. So you get a bunch of Cisco together, you got your reproductive material all over the place, settles to the bottom, and then you're good. So, basically it is, kind of November, December is basically the main time. And they are really, they move around the lake. So we're, mainly talking Lake Superior, and like the spawning stock in the Apostle Islands in northern Wisconsin is, it's actually, these fish will kind of return here around, from really lots of parts of the lake, and they come, swim around during the year, and then they return kind of to the Apostle area. And then, these big aggregations spawn. And that's, why for the caviar market, you can go out there and target them when they're all, because you want those the roe, you want those ripe females, because that's where the money's at. And you get them when they're all kind of grouped together spawning. So yeah, it's about, a month, 2 months. It'll all depend on kind of the weather, and it's a, temperature Q kind of thing. And then those eggs just kind of drift to the bottom and wait until the spring and hatch out, and then we get to see what happens.
Is the temperature Q on the back end too when they hatch out? Do you know?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. They're, and one of the advantages for them is they're already there. So they don't, lots of your fish will spawn, like a pike is going to spawn pretty early, but they're still coming in, right after ice out, and it's, 40-degree water temperatures. But, if your fertilized eggs are already there, you just, don't have to worry about those adults moving around and breaking through the ice and stuff.
This is Ask Dr. Fish, a show where our 2 doctors fishes answer your fish questions, your science questions, and your life questions. If you have one, or you have one, go ahead and put that in the chat on Facebook, YouTube, or maybe Twitter. I don't get that one, but you can use the hashtag, the X tag, Ask Dr. Fish, and I will search for that right now to see if anybody's doing anything. But so every month, every other month, I guess, every episode, we like to have our famous Ask Dr. Fish challenge. Where by famous, I mean, we just started this month. And so if you recall last month, I was the challenger and everybody else was the challengee. And the challenge was this. The challenge was to celebrate hashtag Fishmas. since that is the month. So we will go around and we will ask what you did. And so we left this totally open-ended. It could be something minor, or you could spend entirely too much time doing this given the return that you're likely to get on it, which I recommend. But the challenge was to go ahead and celebrate Fishmas. And since Katie O'Reilly is the progenitor, the genius behind Fishmas, in fact, since many people call her the originator of 25 Days of Fishmas. That's what the O in O'Reilly stands for, originator. How are you choosing to celebrate Fishmas, Katie?
So I'm going to be pretty boring with my challenge here. I am celebrating Fishmas by doing Fishmas every single day. Normally, I get a start on preparing, my tweets and research earlier in the summer, but this year's just, kind of flown by, as I'm sure it has for everybody. And so, a lot of my research has been kind of a little more last minute than I would like. So mostly I spend every day learning about Great Lakes fish species, which honestly is the best job in the world. So I can't complain. But yeah, my Fishmas challenge has been to spread Fishmas cheer.
There we go. Excellent.
Katie, there's not a better gift than daily fish facts and learning about fish. It's wonderful.
It's the gift that keeps on giving, Titus.
Sure is. Titus, did you celebrate Fishmas this year? How are you celebrating Fishmas?
Yeah. Did you all open your gifts that you got for me?
I did.
So that's really what I did this year. So I don't know if you want to hold those up.
Yeah, and we have some video footage too that I think Carolyn can put in. Do you need the link, Carolyn, or do you have it? There we go. So the people at home can see this amazing stuff that Titus sent. Really beautiful. It arrived in the mail just a couple days ago. A Fishmas ornament, and then a coaster, perhaps?
Let's go with coaster. Coaster. Actually, if you look at the back, there's also a Great Lakes outline. I gave you kind of there's Stuart's DJing for his DJ-ness. Katie's running on hers. Carolyn, I hope it's kind of a Baby Yoda thing. That seems like in line, right? Okay,
that's dead on.
Yeah, mine.
These are really beautiful. Paddles. This is amazing. When this.
Yeah. So what I did, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Katie's going to win, obviously, but so we actually at our maker space at our public library, they have this Glowforge thing, which is some kind of laser cutting machine. And I was like, oh, hey, I'm going to sign up for that. So I learned how to use it. And then I made those things. So
look at that.
It was fun, fun to do that. I've actually lost my ornament already. I don't know where it went. So that's pretty awesome.
Save the files,
it's probably in my house somewhere.
I was going to say, Titus, I definitely do not win because they are beautiful.
Yeah, they're really awesome. And so we have a new cat this year. If my door was open, he would probably be in here. And this is a kitty safe ornament for sure. Like, we have very few ornaments on the tree, but I was like, oh, one that I can put on. This is awesome. Thank you.
Well, no, it's really cool.
And I also want to
And it's nice to get... Go for it.
No, I was just going to say, Titus is also being too modest because he is also celebrating Fishmas by doing sketch Fishmas. So we talked a little bit about Sunday Fish Sketch, which is the once a week thing, but Titus sketches every single fish I feature, which is...
Yeah, so I started that last year. I was like, I try to sketch every day. That's been my process for the last couple of years. And, I think my sketches are getting better. I did have my freshman year of college, my intro to studio arts class was my best grade that I got. So that was before I learned how to study and that I actually had to do homework in college. But still, I got a B+, and that was my highest grade. So yeah, I just, last year I was like, I should just sketch every fish as they come up. So that's what I've been doing again this year. And it's fun to just, have a nice prompt there. I don't have to do any thinking. Thank you, Katie. That makes it a lot easier. And even if I have to go on X, which makes me feel like, ill every time I go on there, but,
feel eel.
Yes. Eel.
How many eel puns can Katie fit in an hour? Yes.
We'll make them not exist.
Eely many.
11. Right. Well, this is fantastic. But no, Titus, this was really kind. I was so excited to see this come in, and so much what we do now, you don't get a physical manifestation of it, right? And so to see the beautiful Ask Dr. Fish logo designed by Ethan Kosak, and a very cool Merry Fishmas. Our kids are very fired up. I brought them in today, so I'd have them, but they're going.
Wow,
right
it meant so much to Stuart. He froze up.
It's just
I froze up.
so emotional
so
that he had to
moved.
take a moment.
It was really great. You were kind of looking down. It was like you got a little bit too emotional.
Oh well.
I wasn't sure if you were
am I
doing that
remaining
for dramatic pause, but it was very touching.
Yeah, well, there you go. Carolyn, did you celebrate Fishmas?
Yes, but mine is extraordinarily not cool, but delicious. I bought my kids some Swedish fish that were very colorful, and it used to be very full, and it's no longer full. And as always, I don't know if this is the way it is in everybody's family, but the lemon are the last to go. So, really? Yes.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Carolyn, you really bring together the sweet treat part of an advent calendar with the Fishmas part. So I salute you for that.
Yes, I definitely meant that. Yes. Thank you, Katie.
As the challenger, of course, I am under no obligation to celebrate Fishmas. However, Carolyn, can you call up the video that I just pasted in the chat? And that one has sound. And for those who have not watched this before, I apologize in advance. If you don't listen to Teach Me About the Great Lakes, you have no idea what you're in for once Carolyn gets this going. Here we go. All right. Fishmas is the most wonderful time of year. We share in Piscean knowledge and holiday cheer. There's a fish every day, each one is better than the last. The only problem with Fishmas is that it's gone way too fast. Because it's 340 days until next Fishmas. What are we supposed to do with all of the time? Actually, next year is leap year, so that's 341 days until we next celebrate the holiday most sublime. There's salmon and sturgeon and all kinds of trout and bluegill and bass with both large and small mouth and perch that are yellow and pirate perch too and hogfish and jump rocks and redfish and blue and groupers, both Goliath and gag and jawless fish, both lampreys and hag. There's suckers and catfish and lionfish too, and betas and minnows and the Bengal danio, and lookdowns and amphidromes, several of which are the 9 different species there are of bonefish, but that depends on how you interpret the genetics. 'Cause taxonomy seems so easy, but it's complex. There's sardines and sand sharks and killifish too. Don't forget the pelagics, moneymax and wahoo, barracuda, barramundi, barreleye, bitterling, tunas and lungfish. I could keep going, but what I'm really trying to say is that Fishmas needs more than 25 measly days. So please give me a salmon cannon this year for Fishmas. Load me up and shoot me to the moon. 'Cause days without Fishmas aren't worth living anyway. And by the time I land, it'll be Fishmas again soon. We need more Fishmas. We need more Fishmas. We need more Fishmas. Bring us more Fishmas. Our viewership numbers just tanked.
They turned it on. They were like, what am I listening to? This is amazing.
They're not dumb.
Oh my God, Stuart, I legitimately, was close to tears.
We will keep Fishmas in our hearts every day of the year.
You really have to.
I have a
That
new
brings-
Fishmas Carol we can play on all the stations.
Just so beautiful. So beautiful. Anyway, Merry Fishmas. So now we have to pick a winner. I, of course, am not eligible, which is good because I would get outvoted 3 or 4 to nothing. So the winner of this week's challenge, this month's challenge, is, I'll be honest, I think it's Titus Seiheimer. Titus Seiheimer I choose as our winner because not only does he celebrate Fishmas by sending stuff, bribing the judges, but he also does the drawing. So Titus is our winner. So Titus, in between now and the end of the show, you need to pick out our next Ask Dr. Fish challenge.
But you're also going to be playing a game, so have fun with that.
So have fun
Stuart,
with
I
that.
thought you said I won. I feel like I've lost.
No, you get to choose the challenge. You don't have to do the challenge. It's a huge victory.
I am going to go at the end of the show. We always play a game because that's our thing. Okay, so Katie and Titus, I am going to share a link in the thing if I can open the right tab. Okay, so we always talk a lot about food, right? We talk a lot about food. We talk a lot about eating. And so I started looking around for holiday dishes that include fish. And there's a lot of them. But one thing that kept coming up over and over and over again was this Feast of the Seven Fishes, which is an Italian-American tradition where on Christmas Eve, people will have just a seafood feast with 7 different seafood courses and things like that. So, in theory, I'm going to share this and you all can see it. All right. So we're going to have a Feast of the Seven Fishes here competition. So here's the rules. Okay. Each dish, so there's a series of dishes throughout this presentation. Each dish can only appear on one table, so you have to fight over the dishes that are in this presentation. You must add in your own dish to complete the 7 fishes. It's only Titus and Katie, by the way. It's not Stuart and Carolyn. The dishes should appear in the order you would serve them. So you'll see in a minute you have a table, so you should put them in the order you would serve them. You have 30 seconds to review all of the available dishes, then 3 minutes to create your feast. And during that 30 seconds, I will kind of like knock through and let everybody else see what they are. And then you have to present your feast to us as if you're on a food game show, because I've been watching way too many of those holiday baking challenge and things like that on the Food Network. So, all right. So the options that you have to create your table: lamprey pie, whole roasted fish, shrimp cocktail, salted cod, pickled herring, fish stew, seafood gumbo, fried catfish, smoked salmon, sashimi, fish cakes, and poached fish with pasta. And so this is Katie's table, and that is Titus's table. So in theory, what's going to happen here is you all can just like cut and paste and be as cutthroat as you want, okay? So I'm going to say your 30 seconds are done. And ready? You have 3 minutes to make your stuff, okay? Ready? Go, 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 go.
So while we're waiting, I've got shrimp po' boy.
No. Shh.
Crawfish boil.
Shh.
Shrimp boil.
Shh.
Seafood gumbo. Crawfish etouffee. Shrimp creole. And then another fried shrimp po' boy. Oh no, oyster po' boy. There we go.
All
You
right.
can go half and half. They call it the
Okay, Feast
the
of Seven
Widowmaker.
Fishes. You're done. Okay. Carolyn watches too many food tables. Katie, tell us about your Feast of the Seven Fishes.
Yes. So I wanted to start us off with some appetizers to kind of, cleanse the palate and, kind of get us in the mood. So I have the sashimi and the shrimp cocktail to kind of just, chill things out a little bit at the start. I also wanted to make sure I got the shrimp because, we were very vertebrate heavy with most of our fish species. I then went, we'll transition away from the appetizers, the hors d'oeuvres, into our first course, which is fried two ways. You could either have your fried catfish, very, comfort food, or you could have the lamprey pie, which would take the lamprey and, put it in a pot pie type thing. So good starter meals. And then for our main course, I decided to go with the fish stew and poached fish with pasta. Both, could be endlessly sort of remixable. You could, change your sauces. So a lot of flexibility there. But what I'm proudest of is our final dessert course, which is a dish from Portugal called Lampreia del Ovos. And it has no fish in it, but it's made of 40 egg yolks that are whipped together with sugar and then formed in the shape of a sea lamprey, complete with maraschino cherry eyes and almonds for teeth. This is probably one of my favorite, and it's a Christmas tradition in Portugal, so it is perfect for capping off our Feast of Seven Fishes.
Boy, is it. Have you had, I think we've talked about this before, that picture, or maybe it's my nightmares, I can't remember. But so have you sampled I missed the name, sorry.
I have the Lampreia del Ovos. I have not sampled it, but it is really on my bucket list.
That's awesome. And way to completely understand the assignment, Katie. Nice work.
Yeah,
nice
I've been
work.
That's going to give you a leg up when it comes time to judging, I think. That is true.
All right. Titus, can you please describe your Feast of the Seven Fishes for us?
All right. So we, as a Wisconsin resident, I know that you're gonna get some pickled herring as a starter at my table, which may be we're at a salad bar, and if you're at a supper club and they got a salad bar, there's going to be pickled herring there, and we start with that. We then we've got that tart kind of pickled flavor. We'll kind of cut that tartness with a little fried smelt, and we will go with the head on this time. We're going to have whole head on fried smelt, little tasty treat there. And for the Scandinavians and the Icelandic people at the party, we've got a whole block of salted cod, which they can gnaw on for the next, for the rest of the year. When Stuart is like, Fishmas is over, that 300 days, you're gonna take your tote bag, your gift bag home with you, and it's gonna be full of salted cod. So you're gonna have fish throughout the year. It's a gift that keeps on giving. We'll also have some fish cakes, and in this case, I'm going to use locally caught Lake Whitefish fish cakes, which Lake Whitefish, delicious anytime. We will then have a seafood gumbo using some of the fresh, they're frozen, but the wild caught Georgia shrimp that I just got from a colleague at Georgia Sea Grant in exchange for some Wisconsin cheese. So, just calling in that card and delicious shrimp. We've got a whole roasted fish, and that's going to be a Lake Huron lake trout, which is I've heard people complain about the flavor of Lake Michigan lake trout, who eat a lot of alewives. So we're going to go over to Lake Huron and eat one of their apparently more delicious, less fatty lake trout. And then for dessert, a delicious candied maple and brown sugar smoked salmon to finish the meal out. Quite delicious. And as Katie's guests are getting parasites from their sashimi that she made out of perch or something, we'll be enjoying smoked salmon.
Titus, you're nothing if not on brand.
Okay, and so we have audience. You can vote on your winner now. Just type your name into the chat. So we also nicely done, Titus. That was
yes,
everything
bravo.
that I hoped it would be when I was pulling things together. So thank you both. That was awesome. And mostly, I feel like the thing I learned is that all, like, there's so many different ways that you can eat fish, and they are all delicious. All right, so we have one vote that has come in.
All right.
We can look for other votes.
And then Carolyn and I in our back end chat will paste in the name that we think should win. We'll do it on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. All right. Well, it looks like by plurality, if not majority of the vote, this month's winner is Dr. Catfish herself, Katie O'Reilly. That means Katie gets 30 seconds of soapbox time. But before that, Titus, what is the next Ask Dr. Fish challenge?
So I actually sent it to Carolyn, and she is going to read it for me.
There we go.
And I don't know what it was. I'm just going with your private chat here.
Right. Yeah. Sorry. Many tabs open. Okay. So actually inspired by everything that happened, looking at all the different food dishes and basically getting really hungry, try a new to you fish dish. Go find something from somewhere in the world of all the fishes and create something that's new to you, and take a picture as people want to take pictures of stuff and things like that. Okay.
Yes, that's totally what I was thinking.
Thank you for that, Titus. That was really thoughtful in the way that you tied it into the challenge that you knew was coming, or the game that you knew was coming. That's point.
Exactly.
And you didn't know it was coming. It was amazing. Anyway, okay, so Katie is 30 seconds. Go.
Okay, I'm going with my 30 seconds. Well, it is the end of the year, and you're looking for the perfect gift. And honestly, we have the best gift of all in the Great Lakes. That is the Great Lakes. So I just think, at the end of the year, as we're reflecting on things, taking a chance to think about all the cool stuff, all the cool research that's been happening around the lakes, and all the people who are working to try and keep the lakes healthy and really just restore them to their glorious great state. So I think, in terms of that end of the year, where have we been? Where are we going? I just really would love everyone to take a second to think about what they're grateful for in their backyard, whether it's the Great Lakes or elsewhere, and all the cool science that's happening, cool people that are doing the science, and cool plants and animals that are out there.
Fantastic. That is super. And a moment of gratitude is always worth it. Sorry, it took me a second to take that in. Lately, that's something we've been talking about a lot at home and at work. So that is well done. And it is just a really neat time of year, I think, in the Great Lakes. So that is good to go.
Ask Dr. Fish is brought to you by the fine people at Illinois Indiana Sea Grant, Wisconsin Sea Grant, and Booby Dog Media. The show is produced and hosted by Stuart, Carlton, Carolyn Foley, Dr. Fish Katie O'Reilly, and Dr. Fish Titus Seiheimer.
The live broadcast is supported by Moti Agumbiande, and the podcast version of the show is edited by It's still me somehow. It's still me. The podcast artwork is by Ethan Kosak, and you can view his portfolio at ethankosak.com. That is Kosak.
If you have questions for the Doctor's Fish, send an email to askdrfish@gmail.com. Use the Twitter hashtag, we're still calling it Twitter, AskDrFish, or call our hotline at 765-496-4474. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you live on Facebook and YouTube at 11 a.m. Eastern on usually the second Monday of every even month. In between now and then, if you have fish questions, science questions, or life questions, just ask Dr. Fish.
How long are you going to make me do this?